Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. In this video, I'm at the Weymouth Center for the Arts and Humanities in Southern Pines, North Carolina. Beautiful historic property. Doing a one-day landscape job. If you guys haven't followed along with the channel, I have a playlist for these one-day landscape jobs, and there's a couple more coming up very, very soon. Have a great group of volunteers down here in Southern Pines this morning to help plant these. This area in front of the house, this little island space in the middle, had very overgrown shrubs just a few weeks ago, and volunteers have worked very hard to prep this. We've opened up a beautiful view of the front of the house here, and we don't want to take that away. And so the things that are going back in place are going to stay low. And I'll talk about, we're trying to solve a few problems here, maintenance-wise, and watering, pruning, deer. Lots of issues here that we're trying to solve also in the process of opening up this beautiful view of this historic home. So let's get started. There's 3 that go under that holly and 3 that go under behind that dogwood. Right there. Okay. All right. And what did we end up with on those? There's still one more. Okay, I'll figure out where it. Okay, awesome. Let's see. What else are we missing? The 2 Elysium. Well, yeah, let's stick one of the Elysium on the left-hand side of the house on the corner. Yeah, right. Yeah, and the other one on this corner over here. Okay. Let's take about half of those carex and make some sort of zigzag pattern in that little pocket and that little pocket right there and that little pocket that's over there. So some of the challenges here on this property, number one was, again, keeping this line of sight open. Once those big shrubs came out, it's just obvious that, how much better this looks. So we don't want to come back in here and block it. So I also want to go really, really simple. The procumbens, nana, junipers that are in this bed had also become very old and tired like the old shrubs had, except for when they become old, they actually become sort of unique. And a lot of people use procumbens, nana for bonsai. For that reason, and they're basically bonsaiing themselves out here, and they have great character. So we didn't want to mess with those. So they did a great job of cleaning everything up and leaving those in place. Again, there are deer issues here, so we went with a combination of Loropetalum, and this is purple Daydream Loropetalum, which will stay very small. Basically a weeping habit, great plant. And then we went with gardenias behind them that will only get barely taller than the Loropetalum will. So nothing in this bed is going to get taller than 3 or 4 feet in height. And then we went with Everillo carex around the edge here. All of these things are deer resistant, low maintenance. The carex, the only maintenance is once a year. You can cut it to the ground. These were not cut, so they have a bit of that old foliage on them left over from last year, but the new growth will cover it up pretty quick. But next year, a weed eater across the top of these once, that's it. And really the rest of it just won't need to be maintained. It'll have to be watered for a while to get it established out here, but that's it. Up on the front foundation, we went super simple. We've got some Dwarf also out here in this front bed, and there were Dwarf added to the front, another deer resistant, drought tolerant, low maintenance sort of plant that's not going to require any maintenance, and a different carex. So we're going to sink these things in the ground. We've got a volunteer army here, and I'm excited for that. Normally, this is a lot of holes to dig. So let's get started on it. we're just digging the holes to start with. We're going to come back and add some compost to each of them. It's been pretty easy digging, which is, you never know on any kind of a new place to go. This is the sand. We're in the Sandhills area, and this is the transition between very sandy soils in our state to the east and to the south, and the clay soils that are back up toward Raleigh, which is about an hour north of here. You can see this is kind of a combo of the two. It's interesting. It's pretty easy to dig in, really, but it's got some of that clay blended into it, which is great for holding nutrients. So it should be great soil. And this soil's been amended for so long that I can take the shovel and just do this. You hit a pocket here or there, and there's some older material here where you're going to hit some roots, but the overall digging out here is pretty easy. And so just digging the hole, popping the plant in it just to kind of hold that space. I'm going to come back, add some compost to the edge of the hole, and then I'll get blended back in as they get planted. First of all, a big thank you to the Southern Living Plant Collection. They supplied the plants that we're using for this rejuvenation project. The purple Daydream Loropetalum, the Radiant Sibylla, 2 different types of Carex, some camellias that we haven't talked about yet. So a lot of plants that they supplied to this beautiful historic home. And now we get to hear something about this beautiful historic home. Can you give us some background?
Sure. My name is Marianna Grasso. I've been working here since 2016. The house itself was built in 1922. There's an addition here that was added on about 10 years later so that James Boyd, the owner and writer, could have his studio upstairs. The house now is a nonprofit. It's membership driven, and volunteers here are what make this place keep it going.
He was a writer.
He was a writer, yes.
Okay. How did they make their way down to North Carolina? Because they were from somewhere else,
right? So the grandfather, James Boyd, came down from Pennsylvania, and he wanted a place to winter over. He had his daughter with him at the time, and the industry of the day was the long needle pine, and used it for lumber, and also they cut into the bark for turpentine, pitch, tar, other amazing things that the pine tree is used for. Anyway, she went into the land a little bit, saw where they hadn't started yet, and went back to her father and asked for if he could purchase a swath of land. He agreed, and I think he purchased about 1,200 acres right around 1900, 1903 or so. And then the grandson, the writer, James, he built this house a stone's throw from where his grandfather had built theirs. And he was a writer. He had many friends who came down and visited, lots of people that you would know as far as the writing community. And today we are still a nonprofit. It was incorporated in 1977. The house was purchased in 1979 as a nonprofit, and we are still there today. It's a literary and music hub. We have lots of cultural events, lots of musical events. We rent out for weddings and parties and ceremonies of other kinds. People come here for photography, and picnics and all kinds of amazing things happen here every single day. There's just traffic. There are no gates, and it's open to the public.
So this was the original entrance to the house?
Correct. Yes, this was the original front door, and the entrance went straight out to Vermont Avenue. When the visitors came, they walked through this area. Indoors, there's right across the hall, there's a beautiful aerial window that looks out over what is called the long view into the back pastures, as they were back then. They were lawns, and then they spread out to where the horses and the hounds used to run.
So the acreage that's outside of the historic, or the nonprofit space here, the state has a state park.
Parts of it, yes.
Okay.
In 1964, Catherine Boyd, the wife of James, gave about 400 acres to the state, and it became Weymouth Woods.
Right.
I believe they've increased their property to about 900 acres now.
Okay, and there's paths and trails.
Yep,
And lots
yep.
of things to do outside.
Yep.
If you come to this, there's a lot connected to it.
Right.
Right. She said Vermont Avenue, just to let you guys know, here in Southern Pines, we're between Connecticut and Vermont right now. The road.
New York's over there.
New York's over there.
Maine's
Maine's that way. Yes. Yeah. You pass.
Feel right at home.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. So this is still dedicated to the arts, to writers.
Yes.
And how does that work?
Well, in 1979, Sam Reagan, Poet Laureate of North Carolina, did set aside these space upstairs, the bedrooms, for writers to come in and stay and have retreat for up to 2 weeks out of the year.
Oh, wow.
And this porch that you're filming right now is called the writer's porch, but it was actually the Boyd's sleeping porch. And of course, they didn't have air conditioning, so they had, the sleeping
Right.
porch would open up all the way to the other side of the house for airflow.
Right.
The writers, we have at least 2 or 3 per week coming in, and so they love it here. There's a lot of really positive energy in the house, and
Right.
a lot of wonderful writers have come through here.
Wow, that's amazing. The circular driveway is planted. They're going to pine straw this area later, because what else would you use in Southern Pines than pine straw, the home, the home of the longleaf pine here. I think this looks great. It's, again, a lot of requirements here. We're trying to be pretty simple, keep the plants down low so it doesn't block the view of the house again, because the house is obviously the main feature. We don't want to take away from that. It's got good color, but it's not, off the chain, crazy amounts of color out here. These plants are going to be deer resistant, which is a requirement when you're next to a 750 or 900 acres state park, that with no fence in between you and the state park. So that was an issue. And also, a volunteer group that has a large area to work on. They don't need to have plants that they're going to have to focus in on every 2 or 3 weeks with some sort of project. Again, the Everillo carex, the gold grass-looking plant, will just get cut down once a year. The purple Loropetalum is called purple Daydream. I've talked about it many times on the channel. They were beautiful down at Dr. Durr's house. If you saw that video recently in front of his daughter's house, he had like 5 of them planted together. They're about this tall after several years and about this wide. The way the groupings are in here is I just let the shrubs kind of meander through the bed rather than grouping them all together. And I wanted, no matter what angle you walk up on this bed, there's going to be some Everillo carex, some purple Daydream Loropetalum, and then the gardenia was going to be behind it. And of course, then you have that juniper that lines the interior path that runs through the middle of the bed. The gardenia is Jubilation gardenia. It's a double flower. This one will get into 3 to 4 foot range. It'll, in a few years, it's going to need to be pruned back. They're just budding up and flowering now. These got shipped to me from Alabama, so they're a little bit ahead of where they would be here at the beginning of May, or middle May actually, when I'm filming this. But again, pretty simple, low maintenance, straightforward planting for some, where we're not going to have to do a whole lot of maintenance. They'll get them watered in really well, and then they're going to pine straw this entire area. The entrance into the bed to this middle sidewalk on both ends has radiance abelia. This is just a low mounding abelia. There's talk of putting some annual planting here, and the same thing on the other end. There's 2 additional abelia and putting some annuals. So up here in the front area, in front of the house, we're not adding too many pieces really, and there'll still be a couple gaps in here to figure out. There are some, up in this area, there are 3 camellias going in, and this is light pink shishi, which I'm super excited about. I have one of these planted at the house. It's a form of Shishi gashera, which is a dwarf, supposed to be a dwarf camellia, but it actually gets quite big over time. This is one of Bobby's new introductions, again called light pink Shishi. Beautiful double flower, low growing Camellia sasanqua. There's more carex going in up here, but instead of repeating the Everillo from the other side, this is Everglow. Everglow has a bit of a gold tinge to kind of in the center of the plant. I like that one a lot. There was one variegated abelia here, and I'm in the middle of somebody doing lots of work here while I run my mouth. There was one variegated abelia here, and 2 more were added to just turn this into a triangle. And again, we're trying to keep things that won't block, the front of this beautiful house. There is an Elysium going in back here. This is a Florida Sunshine Elysium, just to get a pop of color in a very dark corner back here. So this will be gold, but it can be kept down about the same height as this boxwood is. And it needs, probably just to the right of that window, so we're not blocking that window. And again, a few more carex added. There's a Carissa holly that's already in place here that'll end up, quite wide in time. It's kind of the perfect plant for out here, really, because it's not blocking the front of the house. And we go to the other side of the entrance. These things have just been repeated on the other side. More of the carex, 2 more of the abelia to, again, create that little triangle of dwarf abelia. A stellar ruby magnolia is going into this spot where we can get a little bit of height. This will have fragrant flowers on it. And then there's 3 more of the camellias at the very end of the building. So thanks to all of our the volunteers you guys are here on Tuesdays and Fridays, to do this. You guys, they do an amazing job. I think, how long have we done? Is this taken? Maybe 2.5 hours or something to put all these pieces in the ground? Yeah, I had no idea. These guys plant faster than I do. But they're in, and thanks again to the Southern Living Plant Collection for donating these beautiful pieces. Hopefully they'll be the combination of deer resistant and low maintenance, and and keep this beautiful home where we can see it like we were going for. So thank you guys, appreciate it, and thanks to the Weymouth Center for the Arts and Humanities, and again the Southern Living Plant Collection. Thanks for watching, guys.